Hi, I'm Dr. Benjamin,
And I'm Dr. Susanna.
and we're both naturopathic physicians at Alter Health, coming to you today to share the importance of eating non-GMO organic food.
GMO stands for genetically modified organisms that have been altered at the level of the gene for different purposes. And the GMO foods we want to focus on today are those that have specifically been modified for the purpose of being more resistant to harsh chemicals that are sprayed during the conventional farming practice. So it's not necessarily the gene modification that has a direct impact on health, but rather the fact that the DNA modification allows for extreme amounts of chemicals to be on the foods, and that's what impacts our health.
And the most important chemical that we're going to be talking about today is glyphosate, which is the active ingredient of Roundup, which is the most widely used herbicide in conventional farming practices. Roundup has been in the conventional farming practice since the 1970s, but it wasn't until 1996 when Monsanto genetically modified the seeds so that they would be resistant to the effects of glyphosate. Specifically, glyphosate acts to disrupt a pathway called the shikimate pathway, which is present in plants, bacteria, and fungi. Monsanto concluded that since humans and other animals don't have this shikimate pathway, then the consumption of glyphosate would be safe and non-harmful when it comes to human health. But as time would tell, over the last 20 plus years, we can now conclude that the consumption of glyphosate is not safe for human health.
Glyphosate has been linked with numerous health conditions, including neurological disorders, issues with reproductive health, cancers, digestive health, muscular disorders, and so many more.
And it really comes down to the fact that, like we talked about, glyphosate disrupts the shikimate pathway, which is used to produce various amino acids in the plants. And amino acids are the building blocks to create the proteins that you and I have in our bodies that make up our flesh and blood and all of our enzymes and hormones and neurotransmitters and things like that. So when we become deficient in some of these proteins like tyrosine, tryptophan, and phenylalanine, which are disrupted through the glyphosate toxin, then we become deficient in these amino acids and our health deteriorates as a result.
Another area of human health that suffers with glyphosate exposure is the digestive system. And this is because glyphosate is a strong antibiotic, and it preferentially kills the beneficial bacteria in our gut that is essential for proper digestion, a strong immune system, mood regulation, and so much more. Glyphosate also impairs digestive enzymes, inhibiting the digestion of protein that we consume through our food. And when proteins are not digested properly, they putrefy in the gut and lead to inflammation and damage of the intestinal lining. This phenomenon is called leaky gut, where undigested proteins actually move across the digestive lining into the bloodstream and cause a systemic inflammatory effect, which can lead to joint pain, cognitive issues, and many more problems.
So we know that gut health is of central importance when we're talking about the holistic health of human beings. Another effect that glyphosate has on plants and humans is its ability to act as a potent chelator. What that means is that it binds tightly to various minerals in plants and in the body, such as zinc, magnesium, molybdenum, manganese, cobalt, and so many more. And when our plants are deficient in these minerals, then of course, when we eat the plants, we're also going to be deficient in these minerals. And the crazy thing about glyphosate is that it binds onto these minerals, making them non-accessible to all of the very intricate processes in the body that depend on these minerals. And when we don't have access to these minerals, we don't function properly. But at the same time, the glyphosate in our body holds onto these minerals at various places in our body, like our liver and our brain. So we have a state of toxicity and deficiency all at the same time. So some of the newest research is looking at the fact that glyphosate is so structurally similar to the amino acid glycine. And we know that amino acids are the building blocks of proteins that make up our flesh and blood and enzymes like we were talking about before. So if we can understand how a glyphosate is taking the place of glycine in various proteins throughout the human body, we can appreciate how broadly toxic glyphosate is to human health.
So how do you protect yourself and your family from the harmful toxic effects of glyphosate?
It is really harmful, really toxic, as we can all appreciate by now. But the good news is that there are some things that we can do collectively to protect ourselves, to take care of ourselves, and help heal ourselves and also heal the planet.
And one thing to be aware of is that glyphosate is actually a water-soluble toxin. So that means that it's now in our water systems, it's in our rain, and even those crops that aren't sprayed directly with glyphosate have trace amount of glyphosate on it simply because they've been watered with water that has some glyphosate in it.
And if you get a glass of water out of the tap, you might be consuming some glyphosate. So it's really important to be conscious of your water supply. Make sure that it's filtered, purified, and a clean source. So obviously, in addition to drinking clean, pure water, we're going to want to make sure that we're eating clean, non-toxic food. And the first thing to do is to be aware of what the GMO foods are, because these foods are going to be the foods that are most heavily sprayed with glyphosate.
So the GMO foods to avoid are soy, corn, canola, and sugar beets. And these are the foods that are often sneaked into lots of processed foods. So it's really important that you check your nutrition labels and make sure that none of these ingredients are in there.
For example, soy can be in the form of soy lecithin or soybean oil, and canola we know is canola oil. Corn has many different forms: high fructose corn syrup, corn oil, corn starch, all sorts of things. And sugar beets is really table sugar.
And so there are non-GMO forms of these foods. You just want to make sure that it has the GMO-free label on it, that it's saying specifically this is not a GMO food.
In addition to that, you're going to want to make sure that you're buying foods that have organic labels on them as well, because having an organic label ensures that these foods aren't sprayed directly with glyphosate. Foods like wheat, beans, barley, millet, lentils are some of the most sprayed conventional foods. Even though they're not GMO foods, they're going to be directly sprayed a lot of the times with glyphosate.
And we recognize that buying organic may not be possible all the time. And for that reason, we'd like to point you to the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 list. And those lists lay out which foods have the highest amount and the lowest amount of herbicide and pesticide residue, so that you can buy some non-organic produce and still be in the clear.
So our challenge to you is to eat organic, non-GMO food. And it sounds really simple, it sounds really easy, but given the status of the world that we're in today, it isn't as easy as it should be. We encourage you to read labels, be conscious of the produce and other grocery items that you're consuming. Specifically, when you're shopping in the produce section, you can look at the little stickers and you can read the numbers on the sticker. And if the number starts with the number 9, then you can be assured that that is an organically grown item.
For extra credit, you can also go through your pantry and toss any GMO products, specifically soy, corn, canola, and sugar that you may have purchased in the past, and just replace them with an organic non-GMO option.
For extra credit, tell a friend or family member or someone else that you care about and love how important it is to choose organic, non-GMO foods, because as we collectively vote with our dollars when we're consuming these items at the market, we are voting for a different agricultural system, an organic system, one that's aligned with nature and doesn't rely on harsh chemicals in the farming process.
We have loads of great resources on our Just One Thing for Health page, so make sure to check those out.
And you can always find more information about us and the work that we're doing at www.alter.health.
Thanks for taking the time to do just one thing for your health.
That's all it takes, is just one thing at a time.
Bye-bye!